hitting start. And then people are, good morning, everyone. We're just going to let everyone join. We know that may take just a minute or so, and then we'll get started straight away. Okay. Okay, and we see the attendees coming in. And I think we have everyone in now. So Kevin, please start us off.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Kevin Donahue. I'm the Director of Membership for Greater Rochester Chamber of Commerce. I'm joined today by Mario Ubaldi, the Director of Customer Success for SizeUp. We're very excited to have you all with us this morning for an overview of the recently launched SizeUp Greater ROC. Our mission here at Rochester Chamber is to help organizations grow, and we do that through advocacy, connectivity, programming, information, and a variety of other ways. But we're constantly on the lookout for additional resources to help our members grow and also to add value to the membership dollars that you invest with us. Small business owners are making decisions every single day, some large, some small, but all important nonetheless. The best decisions are made based on a strong foundation of accurate data. And to that end, we felt that we could aid our members in driving growth by arming them with the right data they need to make decisions about crucial aspects of their business. And that's exactly what SizeUp Greater ROC will be able to do for you. And it has been custom built with data specific to this 9-county region. Today, we're ready to show you how that data can be utilized to best serve your organization. So it's my pleasure to hand you off to Mario Ubaldi.
Great. Thank you so much, Kevin. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mario Ubaldi. I am the Director of Customer Success with SizeUp. Excited to be speaking with you this morning about what SizeUp Greater ROC can do for you. And so before we get started, I do want to provide a little bit of context. So SizeUp is a business intelligence tool. It's the same type of business intelligence that your large enterprise businesses would either have for themselves or perhaps even share with their franchisees. The big difference is that SizeUp is designed to work for you how you need it and when you need it. So we know that a lot of you are very busy running your business, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and we know that the hours are even longer than that. So SizeUp is available for you 24/7 on the internet, and it can be accessed at times where you have to engage with this type of information when you're not too busy servicing customers, clients, working on product. The second thing is most of these large companies would have in-house data analysts, 6-figure salaries and benefits, or they might even go to the large consulting firms, the Deloittes or the McKinseys of the world. We're providing you a tool that you can access that's completely intelligible to you without an MBA or a degree in quantitative analytics. So I'm going to show that to you. So the first thing that you want to know is that you can access the tool via the Chamber website. And then once you go ahead and click over to it, you will be brought to the SizeUp tool. And as I mentioned, this is designed to be extremely simple. We're only going to ask you 2 questions: what you do and where you do it. And we're not going to ask you a NAICS code or anything else like that. We know that 95% of businesses don't even know what NAICS or SIC is, much less the code for their individual business. So if you're working in restaurants, you can actually select all restaurants. You can go as broad or as deep as you want, and you can choose any city within the region. So it could be Brockport, it could be Rochester, it could be anywhere. For the purposes of this demonstration, let's go ahead and just check Rochester. Now, as I mentioned, you can go as broad or as deep as you wanted. So you may be asking, what does the average restaurant, everything from a fine dining restaurant to a taco truck, make within the city of Rochester? And we might guess, $750,000. Seems like a solid guess. And we'll see that actually it's a pretty good guess. But this might not give us the granularity, the focus that we want, and that's okay. We could even go into Italian restaurants if we want to go a little bit deeper. And we're going to see that Italian restaurants are making a little bit more, about $810,000. Or as a guy named Mario might want to suggest, let's go ahead and look at pizza. Interestingly, we can see that there's a little bit more money in chicken parm and fettuccine Alfredo than there is in a slice of pepperoni. And that's great. The reason that we want to supply this information is everyone who owns a small business is doing it for a very specific reason. It may not be to maximize revenue. It may be because their skill set is in pizza, or it's just something they love doing. And we can do this across any industries, and we'll show you that in a little bit. But let's go ahead and look at pizza for right now. And what you'll see is there are valuable KPIs on the My Business or benchmarking tool that helps you to understand objectively how you're performing versus your competitors. You can see a heat map of revenue where you can see those concentrations, and you can also see what the overall trends are within a business. So we may think that there could be, pizza restaurants all over the place, and there's no more bandwidth for them, right? With all of the independent ones. But using that tool, we can actually find out specifically what the overall trends are within that given industry. So the other thing that can matter, of course, is the salary for employees. Sometimes this information is opaque to the end users. So when you're thinking about it, if you have a corporate HR or perhaps you have hiring practices, you might know what the average salary is for users. But let's say that we're thinking that $20,000. It doesn't seem like a lot of money, but actually as a Piazziolo, it's actually very competitive. So competitive, we're off just by $11 in that industry. And you can see counties where you'd expect to pay a little bit more. So you can see the average is 20 to 22.5 in Monroe, and it's a little bit less in surrounding communities. We could also look at the number of employees. I think we can all agree that 10 employees is a small business, but within the context of a pizza restaurant, we can actually see it's quite small. The average pizza restaurant is 15, so you're 2/3 the size of an average pizza restaurant. And you can, of course, always access the table of data or the charts, and on Hover, it will show you that information. So all of this information has been asked of you, but now using our business intelligence, we're going to be able to super crunch millions of data points to show you the information that you may have been thinking about but haven't asked about. So we have number of employees, and now we're looking at cost effectiveness. So you can actually see that the cost effectiveness of your business, because you're generating such high revenue, now maybe less than the average. If we scroll back up to the average restaurant, you can see that we're below average, again, for the typical restaurant. But when you factor in the salary that we're paying, which is very average, and the number of employees, you can actually see that your cost effectiveness is 36% above average. So it's really valuable for you to put this information in context. Originally, you think maybe you're not doing so well, but in the context of this specific restaurant, you're doing better than average. We can also look at revenue per capita and local turnover. So imagine, if you will, that you are that typical 15 person restaurant, you would expect to lose about 2 employees per year. Maybe you're losing 1 and you're frustrated. You're thinking, my goodness, every year I have to recruit and retrain people with skills in my particular industry. In this case, it might be tossing pizza dough, or being a host, whatever it may be, server, depending on the type of restaurant you're in. And you think that that's a point of frustration or weakness for your restaurant. But using data objectively, you could see that that's actually a strong point. You're only losing 1 employee when you'd expect to lose 2. And that's actually a testament to the culture, the compensation, the quality of the business that you're running. We can also look at healthcare costs. So let's go ahead and let's put in $5,000. And this can be really valuable, because for a lot of businesses, unless they do have an outsourced HR or a medical insurance company, they don't know what would be typical for their industry. So you can see that actually for state firms in the average size of 10 people, you're looking at about 7,844 for firms of a similar size. And then you can also look at workers' compensation. Again, this information can sometimes be hidden from you, but through SizeUp, you can discover it and then consider other options in terms of improving your performance in those areas. And the nice thing about this is we have a summary view button. So it can bring up your entire dashboard, and you can look at what's happening across multiple different factors. So let's say that you are doing $750,000, which is spectacular for a restaurant that has only 10 employees. You think that you have a great model, maybe you want to expand. So let's go ahead and add in a few more employees. Let's hope that no one's scared of that number. So we could add in 13 here, but we expect, right, to obviously now we're only 5% above average. We're not hiring more employees to make less money. So let's assume that there's an economy of scale. And by adding those employees, we actually bump up our revenue to $1 million. And we can see that our cost effectiveness is now in the 40% range. So again, these are just scenarios that you can go through, but SizeUp allows you to quickly understand what is happening through the lens of data, objectively, how you are performing against peers in your industry. And that is the first tool of SizeUp. Now, one of the things that I do want to point out is this should be an interactive session. So if you have questions, feel free to chat with us here. And this should bring up a little dot in your Zoom control panel. And there's also a Q&A section. If the questions are relevant to the module I'm demonstrating at the time, I'll go ahead and talk about it, but we will have a dedicated Q&A session at the end. So please do ask your questions. So this is the first of 4 tools. We could also look at the competition tool. So the competition tool, I'm going to switch things up a little bit because we were talking about sort of B2C or business to consumer data. Let's focus on a different example. Let's focus on a B2B example. So I'm sure you guys are also experiencing all of the home building in your area as people are moving in. And so we could go ahead and look at carpenters, and we can see all of the carpenters that are in your area. This is your competition. And it's really valuable because you can take this information and see exactly what they're doing. You also have to have customers. So let's assume that you're a finished carpenter, not a frame carpenter, not building the frames of the houses, but you're doing the built-ins, the cabinets, the closets, bookcases, things of that nature. So you need to sell your services, but you're not selling to an individual consumer necessarily, you're selling to other businesses. So we could look at construction and notice I don't have to put in anything specific, no codes, no numbers, and I can see all of the construction companies, single family home, residential, industrial, so on and so forth. Let's go ahead and look at single family home builders. We can find out all of the information here for these various single family home builders. We can find out more information. They've been in business for 37 years. We can find out their phone number. So we can use this as a prospecting tool to see companies that we might want to sell to, or maybe some companies that are smaller than what we want to target, someone who's perhaps home-based. But you get the idea. You can see all of the information here, and you can add and subtract as many industries as suits your business plan. So for example, we were looking at construction earlier and we chose single family home construction. We could also look at, say, commercial and office building construction, because our same skill set of building cabinets and bookcases and things of that nature, while they may not pertain to industrial users, we certainly law firms and accountants and whatnot could need those bookcases or document storage. So now we can add in those other industries and see where they fit. And we can zoom in and zoom out to see where the concentration is. We can even look at supply chain. So as we look at the industries right here, we have to think about, well, who are we buying from? I am a carpenter, so I need wood. We could look at, how about hardware stores? So here we go, hardware stores. So we're going to see a list of all the hardware stores right now. We can see local hardware stores, and we can also see, those chains like Home Depot, and we can see all of the information related to them. Maybe that works for us. Maybe we're doing smaller projects and they can supply us the needs that we have. However, if we start to work on larger projects, instead of going to hardware stores, maybe we have to go directly to the lumber mill. So we could even look at lumber wholesalers or go directly to plywood millwork, depending on how specific we want to be. So now we're adding in all of those lumber wholesalers. And again, we can search for specific ones. So you don't have to limit yourself just to searching for the industry. You can actually look for a specific company. I'm not an expert at this, so I'll put in lumber. So we have everything from lumber liquidators to lumber Mac tree service. You get the idea. So whatever matches the word that you're searching for, you can go ahead and look at that. And then you can go ahead and pin that particular business. And so what you'll see is that your ones that you're looking at are there in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 character. And then you can actually click on and zoom out to the business that you might be interested in. It doesn't matter where it is in the geography, as long as it suits what your trade area is, what you think your supply chain is, you can go ahead and look at that. And so that is the second tool of SizeUp Create a ROC. One of the things that I should point out is all of our tools have an export feature. So you can sit here and click on the print report. We recognize that you might be creating a business plan. You might be applying for a loan. You might be trying to attract investors or work with partners. So if you need to work on paper, you just click on the print report button, and all of that information that you had online is now back into a paper format that you can include in other documents. And we're going to give you a round trip. So you can hold up this QR code to your webcam, to your iPad, to your iPhone. It'll bring you back into the application so you can run other scenarios. So this is the second of 2 tools in SizeUp Create a ROC. If there are any questions, feel free to post them here. Otherwise, we'll move on to the third one. Okay, great. So we're going to go ahead and look at the advertising tool. Now, we call it an advertising tool, and that is in fact what it does, but it also helps you understand really kind of what your optimum trade area might be as well. So we've looked at 2 examples now. We've looked at a business to consumer, and we've also looked at a business to business. Let's go ahead and look at professional services, because those type of businesses tend to advertise. So we could be looking at dentists, attorneys, therapists, massage, whatever it may be. Let's go ahead and look at dentists. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull up analysis on dental spending within 4 miles of Rochester. And again, we can change the area to whatever we want it to be. So we could look at a different community. We could look at, say, well, how about Geneva? So a little bit further to the east, and we want to do analysis. We want to see the areas within the area. Now we're at 17 miles. The best suit our particular dental facility. And that's why the filters are so great. We can choose all sorts of characteristics, but we can also choose the trade area or the type of analysis we're doing. So right now what we're looking at is total revenue. We know that here there's 6.5 to 7 million in revenue, and in Geneva 14456, there's 4 million to 4.425 million dollars. This is quite literally the Jerry Maguire, Rod Tidwell show me the money way of figuring out where you want to advertise. Tell me where the money is. But if we were starting our dental practice, we might want to look at other different types of markets. We might look at underserved markets. So these are zip codes where there's higher individual household spending and lower business revenue. So maybe these are areas that are underserved for whatever reason. We can look at it here and we can say, I have a special value proposition. Perhaps you're a family dentist, you're focused on younger kids. As such, you have different things. Maybe you have nitrous oxide, maybe you have TVs on the ceiling so the kids can look up at them and watch things to distract them while their dental stuff is being done. So you might pay more for that. So you could adjust this and say, I really want to understand what the household income is, at least $50,000. Again, you're focused on families, so we need to focus on where they're at least 5, so they have teeth. Not so old they've started losing them necessarily. And you'll see that the map will update in real time. And you can adjust these characteristics for whatever you think your particular consumer or business partner is. And now those results are going to be updated. So we went from over 10 to now just 10 that match our criteria. And we can again export this information. So again, this is the online, this is the offline. So it's going to put those filters. I'm going to zoom in here in case we should have been looking at optometrists as opposed to dentists and anyone else is having trouble seeing. And you can see that the exact characteristics that you put online are now here on the paper version. So we're looking at lowest amount of revenue generated per resident dentist, 17 miles from Geneva, with a household income greater than 50,000 and median age between 5 and 50. And so all of the zip codes are here along with the characteristics that you wanted to focus on. And you can take this, so if you're advertising online, you can take this information yourself and you can go to Facebook or Google or Apple or any of the ad networks and put these characteristics in to target your ads at these specific communities. If you're working with someone else who does your advertising for you, you can go ahead, export that to the advertising report, give them this report so that they can optimize their ad buys for you. Now, we're talking about online, and certainly SizeUp's an online tool, but it's also completely applicable for offline. You might know that there's billboards in these areas. Maybe there's a community newspaper. Maybe there's a specific area where this information is shared, like for instance, on the back of your grocery store receipts. I know for a fact that you can actually choose kind of the ads or the type of purchases that people make that will generate those specific ads on grocery store receipts. So all of this can happen in real life, both online and offline. Maybe there's a bus route that goes between here and Rochester, and you want to have one of those ads on the bus. The information is here, regardless of what it is that you want to do. And we're not going to limit you to just your market. If you have a national market, and let's look at actually a concrete example of that. Let's say that you make jewelry, right? People, that's the type of thing that could be sold all around. So we can look at jewelry, watches, precious stones, and precious metals. And let's say you're just trying to figure out where people are spending that money. And I know a lot of people are doing this type of thing now at home. They have Etsy stores and eBay stores. We can go ahead and leave these filters in, or we can say, hey, I'm just interested in who's spending the money for whatever reason. And we can go nationwide. And so now you're not just marketing to Geneva or Rochester or the Finger Lakes area or upstate New York or wherever. You're actually marketing to, well, Manhattan, Los Angeles, Miami, San Francisco, Atlanta, and Beverly Hills. These are your top zip codes for jewelry expenditure. Now, interestingly, you say, hey, I may have a unique proposition or a unique product, and I don't want to compete with the Tiffany's and all of those, the Rolex stores. You could also, again, identify underserved markets. And now you're finding places that spending on jewelry, but maybe are underserved by jewelry stores. Maybe they prefer to buy online, and you're looking at these areas. So that's one example of advertising, and that's really focused on consumers. But you are not limited to just consumer advertising. If we go back to those professional services, let's say that we are looking at home builders, right? Let's look at single family home construction. We have tools for you as well. So instead of looking at perhaps underserved markets or revenue per capita, what you'd be looking at is maybe you're a smaller home builder and you're looking for other smaller companies to work with, to partner with. You're not necessarily going to sell to the KB Homes or Lennar or whatnot. So we can look at total employees and we can adjust our filters here. Obviously, we probably go farther out to look for home builders or carpenters or plumbers or whatever it may be. Maybe we'd go out to 50 miles. So let's go ahead and make that adjustment. But instead of focusing on revenue, which we could totally do here, let's look at employees. Maybe we're looking to partner with smaller firms. So let's go at most 50. And you can see that that information is updated in real time. So if you are focusing on working with single family home construction and you're looking for firms that are less than 50, or we could even drop that down to 10, I'm going to be very daring and show that information. We can actually target these specific businesses in these zip codes. Now, where you would advertise would of course change. You're probably not going to necessarily advertise on Facebook or Twitter, but you might advertise online on, say, LinkedIn or professional sites, construction sites, building science sites, or if you know that there's a trade publication that serves those areas, you know the zip codes that you want to access. So we had a question here about how's all this data collected and an interval of information updated. That's a fantastic question. I am going to hold that to the end, but I did want to let you know that I did see your question. If there's anything about the advertising tool, I want to go ahead and answer that now, but otherwise we'll move over to the fourth module in SizeUp Greater ROC, and then we'll get to the Q&A session. Okay, not seeing any, I'll go ahead and hit demographics. And I want to explain what this tool is. This is probably one of the more powerful tools. Unlike the other tools, it does require certain levels of interpretation. So it's the most sophisticated, it's also the most powerful, and it also requires, obviously, you to really understand what it is that you're trying to do. So there's 3 different types of analysis in SizeUp Greater ROC. In terms of place, boundary, and address, and also 3 different types of analysis in terms of the data that's available: demographic, consumer expenditures, and labor force. Let's run through each of these. So for a place is really simple. You've kind of seen this before. It's the city, it's the county, it's the metro. So if you want to understand what's happening within Monroe, you can go ahead and we can do a demographic overview and click create. And that's going to go ahead and tell us what the population is, what the 2025 population is. You get the idea. You've seen these before. They've been on news reports. Good way of looking at things, but sometimes people want to be more specific. I'm literally going to just pull up a random address here, 1234 Clover Street in Rochester. And I might be interested not so much about demographic, but let's say consumer expenditures. So within 20 miles of this specific address, we could go ahead and let's not make it 20 miles. That might be a little bit far, but let's do 15. So we're going to pull up a report on the site-specific consumer expenditures around this address, not a generic address, not the city, the county, or something else, but this specific address. And so what we're going to see is the information related to that. So if I was a consumer-facing business, I might want to know about what they're spending at food away from home. So you can see that if for grocery shopping, really food at home, looking at $1.5 billion within 15 miles of this space. Food away from home, $1.25 billion. So people are eating more at home than they are dining out. You can also see how much they're spending on alcohol, health insurance, furniture, whatever category that you're interested in. Now, radius reports are one way of looking at this, but a lot of people don't think in terms of miles, they think about drive time. So let's say that we were interested less in that and more about drive time. You can select minutes and select create, and it's going to go ahead and crank out that number. Now, instead of that ring report that you're going to get this specific geography here. You can see, obviously, if you're crossing a bridge, you're not going to get quite as far over as you are staying where there aren't any bottlenecks in transportation. Same thing applies here. You can look at all of these categories. We're going to dive in a little bit more, but I do want to show you within a boundary tool. So the reason the within a boundary tool is so powerful is if you know your trade area, if you know your labor shed, for instance, you can really use this tool to your advantage. So within a boundary, we're going to go ahead and click here, and we can draw whatever points we want. So maybe we think that there's a specific corridor of people who would come work for us, maybe in our home building business. Anyways, you get the idea. We're going to create this specific shape. We're going to select labor force, and we're going to select create. And it's going to tell us that within the shape, kind of looks like a horse that's on its side, that there's 13,010 total businesses. Those businesses employ 197,957 employees. And we can dive in even further because we can look at the unique characteristics of those businesses or of those employees. So let's say, for example, that we're interested in construction workers, and we can be as broad, right? Similar to how we were looking at benchmarking, or we can go more specific. So instead of construction, we just want to look at general construction workers within the shape. So we can go ahead, and now we're looking at that concentration. And if we want to dive in even deeper, we can actually see the concentration here. Right here, there's 423 to 493 general construction workers living here. And as a percentage of the overall workforce, you can actually see it's higher in this area. So while the aggregate number may not be as high, over almost 20%, anywhere from 16 to 20% of the workers in this area work in general construction. And we can dive in even further, and we can start looking at neighborhood level information. So this can be very, very powerful if you're trying to target, say, recruiting for construction workers, or you're trying to figure out where people are spending those money. As we dive in, we can actually see the concentration not at the zip code level, but at the neighborhood level. So we're seeing that 16 to 25% of the people in this neighborhood right here, just north of Dutchtown, work in general construction. Or again, we can look at the aggregate numbers. but the within a boundary tool can give you really precise information for the specific trade area, labor shed, consumer patterns that you're interested in understanding. So not only that, we can see there's 233 to 272 here, and so on and so forth. So if you know that there are labor fairs going on there, there's recruitment drives, whatever it may be, you can go ahead and target those areas. And this is the same for all of the different types of analysis that you can look at. We can look at demographic overviews, consumer expenditures, and labor force reports. And we can run all of these reports sequentially. So if you wanted to, for instance, figure out where, let's go ahead and go back to Rochester, and we'll do a demographic overview. So if, let's say you're running a women's boutique, you could certainly map where the concentration of women are. So we'll scroll up to the top. We can see it's 51.8. So now we can know where women are. And mind you, this is for business. It's not a dating app, but we could also focus not on women, but let's say that we're selling career wear. So we're selling this to women who are entering the workforce, and you want to know where your 20 to 29-year-olds are, or perhaps you're targeting certain income groups. So let's say you're starting out, it's that you got your degree, but you're starting off at 40 to 50K. So all of these can be overlaid and exported so that you can create the type of analysis that you need that's most meaningful to you. So those are, in quick review, the 4 modules on SizeUp ROC. The ability to understand objectively how your business is performing, the ability to see the spatial relationships within those industries, and holistically from your competitors to your customers or your possible customers, if you're using it as a prospecting tool, to your supply chain, to optimize the value of your dollar spend in your industry, following the type of consumer or business that you're targeting. And lastly, deep demographic, consumer expenditure, or workforce data that can tell you what you need to know and how to really target precisely the exact demographics that you're looking for. So those are the 4 modules. Together, combined, they can oftentimes answer questions that an individual module can't do. And I think we may discuss that a little bit in our Q&A. So unless there are any other questions about demographics, we'll turn this over to Q&A.
Mario, thank you. That's an awesome overview. We're, again, very excited to be offering this to our members just as part of their membership with us. We've done a previous demo, and these questions do come up all the time. Where's the data come from? How often is it updated? You know, what's your source? As obviously small businesses will be making important decisions based on this data. So, you know, they're curious to where it comes from.
Absolutely. So let me do this. Let me pull up a quick PowerPoint presentation. I know this is supposed to be a live demo, but I am going to go ahead and pull that up, and I'll talk about it a little bit more as we get context for that. And I'm sorry, PowerPoint just crashed, so I just need to relaunch that and get that information. What I will say, let me just share this information with you here. We'll get to the competition slide. And let's go to something that probably makes a little bit more sense for people than construction companies. So I'm going to walk you through the tool, and hopefully my screen share is back on. There we go. So we're looking at the competition tool. So this is what we call firmographic information. So this is the information about each of these individual businesses. This information is updated every 3 months. What that also means, so the information about the business, its location, income, number of employees, all of those things. So the business information that's on this map, and then also that is aggregated to provide you these benchmarks, is updated every 3 months. So as businesses open, as businesses close, that information is updated. If we look at the, I'll show you another heat map here. So if we look at, say, consumer expenditures, we're in coffee shops right now, food and beverages, food away from home. Notice that you can go as deep here on the heat maps as you can in terms of the type of businesses that you're looking for. So let's assume for my coffee shop, probably breakfast and brunch or snacks and non-alcoholic beverages are going to be where we're looking for. This information is updated every 6 months. So the demographic information, consumer expenditure, and business and workforce information is updated every 6 months. So now, but in some cases, and I'll go ahead and pull you over to the demographics tool, you can see that the information is actually updated with 5-year projections. So right now we're looking at 2020, And then now we're looking at 2025. So it just depends on what city, county, or metro area that you're looking at. So always 2020 and then 2025. When the year flips over, we'll have 2021, 2026. So the information is updated annually with 5-year projections. And hold on, sorry, I probably need to see the optometrist, but I haven't looked through one yet. Are the demographic values of only 1 year or an average of many years? So it is current year and then 5-year projections. The projections are based, as we know, on various factors. We have hundreds of different data partners. So it's everything from the census to American Community Survey to TransUnion, Equifax, right? We all know that they know more about us than we do, specifically when you go for a home loan or you're surfing the internet, you can find out how quickly they can follow you around and do that. So a question about how far beyond Monroe will this work? I know the technical answer, but maybe Kevin wants to give the other answer.
Yeah, no, great question. And we wanted to make sure we provided access to data that is essentially mirrors our service region. So it is the 9-county Greater Rochester region.
Right. And so that's in terms of the type of analysis. So if you're benchmarking, again, we can look at that and we can say, hey, I'm really interested in what coffee shops are doing in Geneva, or we can look at Rochester. But the analysis must start within the 9-county region, but it can extend to whatever you think your trade area is. As I mentioned, we've seen this. A lot of people are doing jewelry at home during the pandemic, but they're selling nationwide on eBay, Etsy, so on and so forth. So if you think that your trade area is nationwide, you can go ahead and zoom out. And the same thing happens with your benchmarking tool. We're looking at coffee shops in the 9-county area. But if that's not enough for us, we can keep zooming out and seeing the state. I don't know why you'd want to benchmark yourself against a coffee shop in Nebraska, but if you want to, you can. So you get the idea. It's the same thing with a competition tool. Now, transparently, at a certain point, if you zoom out, you're just going to see it'll look like chickenpox hit the United States, but you can zoom out as far as you want to go as well. But the analysis must always begin within the region.
So Mario, we had another question come in, and this, with COVID, obviously 2020 was an odd year to say the least. So in terms of benchmarking, is it always the year prior, or are there ways to compare to other previous years? So
absolutely, there are ways to do it. We don't have it present in our application because that's not the intended use. We really wanted to make this simple to use. And certainly, I know that there's lots of resources out there where if you want to do sort of a trend analysis, you certainly can. And there's lots of firms that will supply that. But we're trying to make this usable not for the data scientist, but for the small business owner. So I'm sure if you Google, you'll find out the companies like TransUnion, Equifax, there's tons, Dun & Bradstreet, right? Depending on if you're looking at industry people, they'll sell those things to you. And I'm sure that there's other resources the chamber can provide for you as well. So this is only one of many things that Kevin and his team do for you.
Last call for any questions, anything else? And certainly if you think of something after the webinar, feel free to shoot me a message directly. And if I can't answer it, we'll make sure to get it. But I think we are in good shape. So we'll be able to give you some time back. I want to thank Mario very much for his, just a thank you. I thought we might have a last minute, but just a thank you. I'm going to mention for those of you interested in gathering socially, we've got an event at Iron Smoke coming up on November 17th. Great venue. We'd certainly love to see you there. Feel free to check that out on our calendar of events. And for more information on SizeUp or to request a password access, go to our website, greaterrochesterchamber.com, and under the resources section, you will see a link for our SizeUp page. Mario, thank you. As always, super insightful and in-depth presentation. We're very excited to offer this to our members. Hope you take advantage of it, and we hope you all enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you all so much. Stay safe. Bye.